Guys, welcome to On the Field podcast. I'm Alex. I'm here with my co-host Steven. We're ready for week 11 of college football. Steven, how are you doing today?
Alex, I'm doing great. Happy hump day. Feels like just yesterday was week 7 and we were kicking things off here on the field, talking over college football, and it's already week 11. Season coming to an interesting end here, but looking forward to recap your big weekend. Nice parlay hit. Very
Yeah,
happy for you.
we went 5 for 5 this weekend. I got my revenge back finally on the board. I got with the parlay. So I'm pretty happy. Very excited. Had some good games last week. Alabama, LSU, Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Georgia, Missouri. Lots of good games that we can recap this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Big matchup between Alabama and LSU, and also just an absolute shootout between USC and Washington. A lot to uncover and unpack here on this fine Wednesday afternoon. Looking forward to diving right into it with you, buddy.
Yeah, so let's kick this off. I think we can start with let's see which game. We can kick it off with Kansas State at Texas. All right, so final in this one, 33-30, Texas in overtime. They get the job done without Quinn Ewers. Hopefully, I think Quinn Ewers is now day-to-day, but they need him back pretty soon. Maybe not for this game against TCU. They can probably get it done without him, but for the Big 12 championship, they're definitely going to need him. Malik Murphy, he had 248 yards in the air against Kansas State. He had a couple of good passes early, but then after that, he had 2 interceptions. I think they were up like 24-7. And then just interception after interception, they got Kansas State back. It was looking a little scary on there. I was rooting for Texas to pull through. But Malik Murphy, he kind of reminds me of Dante Moore from UCLA. Freshman, still really young and has a really good arm, but just inexperienced and kind of forces throws. And, it could cost him a lot. But I think he'll be really good next year, but he's still too inexperienced. And then hopefully they get Quinn Ewers back here soon.
Yeah, almost a scary finish for Texas here, taking on a red-hot Kansas State team. They were outscoring opponents 82-3 over the last 2 weeks, and almost fumbling this one late, but they got the job done, even with Murphy in at quarterback, and improved to 8-1 on the season. I'm with you, Alex. I think they got a relatively easy game ahead against TCU. Kansas State played them 2 weeks ago and absolutely destroyed them. But if they want any shot of winning that Big 12 championship game and making it into the playoff, maybe they're definitely going to need Ewers step up. And definitely would like to see a little bit better of a performance from their defense, especially in that second half. Got to be able to close out those games down the stretch when they have them seemingly won at halftime.
Yeah, there's definitely some room for improvement there. We'll see. We'll see Texas at TCU this weekend. I have Texas, but we'll see. We had Texas A&M against Ole Miss, playing at Ole Miss. So this one was a little bit closer than I thought it would be. I'm glad I took Ole Miss straight up on the money line and not the spread. So at times, Texas A&M actually found their offense in this game. Max Johnson actually played one of his better games. 31 out of 42 passes completed, 305 yards for 1 touchdown and 1 interception. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised of how Texas A&M was able to hang in here. A missed field goal at the end to send it into overtime. But definitely a close game, and now Ole Miss has Georgia next this week. I'm not sure. I think Ole Miss didn't look as good as I thought they would, but they got the job done.
Yeah, scarily close. The line was only 3 points for Ole Miss to cover, at least at the time when we were looking at it last week. and got a push there. But Ole Miss escapes with the win. They don't have to go into overtime. But like you said, Alex, Georgia coming up. It'll be an interesting uh, game to see if Ole Miss can bounce back and give Georgia a scare. But this Bulldog team looks like the real deal.
Yeah, and they're playing at Georgia, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. We also had Oklahoma against Oklahoma State, the last one in Bedlam. So the final score here, 27-24, Oklahoma State. Now Oklahoma's dropped 2 straight games, back to back. Definitely out of the race for the national title. And it looks like Oklahoma State could get to the Big 12 championship. We'll see. But another disappointing performance from Oklahoma. I think they did have one bad call that wasn't called on them. Pass interference wasn't called on Oklahoma State. That could have affected, but either way, without that call, they should have. I thought they would find a way to win, but unfortunately, they didn't.
Yeah, this Oklahoma State team was coming into this game with a bit of momentum, and you always felt like at home, biggest game of the year for them against their state rival, that they were going to be putting up a fight and absolutely easily covering what was a 6-point spread at the time we were looking at it. Didn't quite reach the 61-point total for the over-under, coming in at about 51 there. But just an unfortunate game to drop for Oklahoma at 2 losses now. Seems like they're out of the college football playoff discussion for sure.
Yeah, and Oklahoma they have another easy week this week. Hopefully they get back on track. We'll check that out. We also had Missouri versus Georgia. Georgia playing at home. So we talked about this game last week. We both said that I think the spread was at 16 at the time that we were recording, and we both thought that was a little bit disrespectful to this very good Missouri team. And they definitely showed that. They had a chance to come back with about a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter, but Brady Cook threw 2 interceptions in prime time. They were close. I knew it was going to be a close game. I'm not surprised. I mean, that Missouri offense just looks really good. I mean, Luther Burden balled out. He had 53 yards, 3 receptions. Theo Weiss stepped it up. We talked about how Georgia already knew that they were going to have to contain Luther Burden. So Theo Weiss stepped it up. He had 90 yards on the day. Cody Schrader, 112 yards on the ground. I really like this Missouri offense. And to be honest, I kind of think that Missouri is a better team than Ole Miss. I think maybe a little controversial, but I really like this Missouri team.
Yeah, Luther Burden got to work early, scoring a touchdown in the first quarter. But after that, Georgia just took control of this game. It was close throughout, but especially in the fourth quarter, pulled away late and then just didn't give Missouri anywhere to go from there. They don't cover the spread, but at this point in the season, they're just looking to remain undefeated, get to that SEC championship game, and confirm their spot in the playoff. I agree with you, Alex. Definitely Mizzou, a much tougher opponent than Ole Miss for Georgia. They got to factor in that Georgia will be. I don't know. Georgia's still at home, so yeah, smooth sailing for Georgia this week, I'd say. Spread is at 10.5 for that one. We can dive into that a bit later. And Georgia's been up and down in terms of covering spreads so far this season, but no reason to think they drop one here at this late stage in the season.
Yeah, I like this Georgia team. We'll see them in the SEC championship, hopefully, against Alabama, but maybe a little bit too early. There's still 3 weeks left. A lot can still happen, so we'll keep an eye on that. We also had Washington at the Coliseum playing USC. So the line was on this one was only 3 points. The spread was 3 points. If you didn't listen to me, you made some pretty easy money. I thought there was something fishy with the line, but Washington won. USC kept it pretty close, but in the end, they got a couple key stops and scored when they needed to. So final score on that one, 52-42. Michael Penix and Caleb Williams both balled out. They looked really good, especially in that first half. A lot of trick plays, lots of offense, no defense, but definitely one of the more fun games to watch this weekend.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely one of the more fun games to watch. Not only this weekend, but I think throughout the entire season. Just tons and tons of offense. We were joking about it last week about the over/under. This only was at 76, and you more so than me, Alex, were confident on that over hitting, and this one in the third quarter was already there. And I mean, throughout most of it was neck and neck. Teams were trading shots left and right. Washington pulled away in the fourth quarter, got a couple huge stops, and then kicked the field goal to go up 3. And then Dylan Johnson, just an absolutely insane game on the ground. 26 carries, 256 yards, and 4 total touchdowns. That man was stiff arming people left and right, evading tackles. And not to take any credit away from Michael Penix Jr., he shot himself up into the top spot for the Heisman after a big win against Southern California. I keep messing up the USC and the U of SC there, but Michael Penix Jr. definitely putting a stamp on his case. He still got Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy trailing behind him a little bit, but if this team can go undefeated, and especially if they beat Oregon in that Pac-12 title game, if they get there, then this Heisman Trophy looks like it's all for Penix Jr.
Yeah, definitely a good game by Penix. I mean, both offenses combined to have over 1,100 yards of total offense, which is crazy. I mean, I think the over under for the live game was at like 104, and it looked like it was going to hit. I think they finished like around 96, 98, but definitely lots of offense. USC just no bad defense in that. They finally fired their defensive coach, Alex Grinch, which a little bit too late. I think they should have fired him last season because their defense was pretty bad last season as well. Somehow it got worse instead of better. But yeah, definitely excited for Washington versus Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. That's definitely a game that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, good call on that, Alex. You were asking for that man to be fired last week, and it actually came through. So seems like you had the crystal ball working for you on all your takes last Wednesday.
Yeah, hopefully I have another crystal ball for this week. I have a couple of locks here. We also had LSU playing in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. So this one was, I think the line was at 3.5 or maybe 3. I'm not sure. But
it was 3 even. Yeah.
3 even. Okay. So 3 even, the spread. Jalen Milroe was really one of the, not, I wouldn't say surprising, because in the Texas game early in the season, we saw Jalen Milroe's legs. So we knew he could run, but he just hadn't done it in a while. So 4 rushing touchdowns in this game, 155 yards. He looked really good. Jaden Daniels also looked really good. He got injured. I think it was in the third or fourth quarter, late, but by that point the game was already over. Alabama was up 14, and they stopped LSU on a couple of drives. But definitely a good game, especially in the first half. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., they did really well in the first half, but the second quarter, the Alabama defense really took over.
Yeah, LSU did a fine job in the first half. They kept it close for sure. They got the first score of the game, but it's been the story of this season for the Crimson Tide, just absolutely taking games over in the second half. Their defense showing up time and time again. They were losing to Kentucky, Kentucky or Tennessee, Tennessee couple weeks ago, and then came storming back with a big second half performance. And to your point, Alex, Jalen Milroe, like I've been saying, has been improving and improving week after week. Over the last 5 weeks, has only had 2 interceptions, and proving that he's able to adapt and learn with this Alabama offense. If the pass isn't there, they're taking easy pop passes right over the line, gaining some grounds on the yards where the defense is leaving gaps. And then after a while, the backfield sometimes doesn't expect it, and then they drop that deep ball and get a big play. And man, when people were counting out this Alabama team earlier in the season, it's almost back to old news, and seems like they're going to be easily in that SEC championship game. I'm excited to see if and when Alabama plays Georgia, what that game's looking like.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited for that Georgia game. The only thing that worries me is Alabama's receivers. They don't have elite receivers like they've had in the past years. I mean, you have Jermaine Burton, but he's good, but he's not like at the elite level like a Jaden Waddle or like a Henry Ruggs the third that we've had in the past season. I told my dad that yesterday, and he was like, "It's because they don't want to show that he has the receivers." He made a point. He was like, "We hadn't seen Jalen Milroe run like that since the Texas game because they don't want to see that. These teams are watching the tape, and Nick Saban doesn't want to show all that. So we'll see. Maybe my dad's right. Maybe he's wrong. But definitely excited for the Alabama Georgia game."
Yeah, definitely not the same level of talent that they've had in years past at quarterback or at receiver. But I think that's just more credit to Nick Saban as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, coach in college football history. He's able to utilize the weapons he has and construct a game plan to take care of business. And what was a terrible week for the Fighting Irish, losing to Clemson, which we could segue into right next after this. I just had to get this in. This game took an early afternoon low into a evening high for me, and I'm sure for Irish fans across the nation. I just loved seeing that that stupid look on Brian Kelly's face after missing a fourth and one call, missing field goals, getting stopped later in the game. Love seeing his face get dark red, and just always felt comfortable in this coaching matchup in Alabama with a 14-point win after a line of only 3. Also worth noting the over of 60.5 hitting. So thanks to Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe. Absolutely great offensive showing there.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it was in the first half. I'm not sure if it was in the first quarter or in the second quarter. I have no idea why Brian Kelly went for it. I think they were up or they were tied, but there was no need to go for it. And he did it anyway. And he gave Alabama some momentum there.
Yeah, I believe it was in the first quarter actually. And it was tied, and then Alabama went and scored on like the next drive. And when you're playing Alabama, you got to take the points when you could get them, especially when you have a close game early. Brian Kelly, I guess, trying to go for the home run play there early, but I don't know. He's going to be rethinking that one. I'm sure he has been rethinking it for the past couple days. But LSU's got a nice matchup this week. Back at home, taking on Florida. We'll dive into that one a bit later. Let's segue into Notre Dame losing to Clemson. I had this one somewhat right on the over-under, but just completely wrong in terms of the spread. Notre Dame, a 3-point favorite. I felt like they were going to win by a ton more. I felt like they got the jitters out of the squad early in the season. Obviously they threw that game against Ohio State at home, and then followed it up with a terrible loss on the road to Louisville, who have been looking pretty solid. Not to miss, but yeah, I was just completely wrong here. This is a Clemson side that at the time was 4-4. Their roster is definitely a lot more talented than that, and I made the point that they were going to be playing this game very tough considering it is Notre Dame and they've been going back and forth, although Clemson's been taking the lion's share of the matchups there. I felt like this was Notre Dame's year to get the win on the road in Clemson, but definitely with a line like -3, should have been looking more into that. Clemson got out to an early lead and just never looked back. Sam Hartman now 0-5 in his career against the Tigers, and Clemson got a big win here, trying to secure a bowl game. Alex, what'd you take away from this matchup?
Yeah, so Clemson's a lot better than what the record shows. Uh, they lost to Duke early in the season by a couple of points, but they almost beat Florida State. They went into overtime. They had a close loss to NC State before this weekend, and NC State is actually pretty good. So they beat Clemson, and then they just beat Miami this past weekend. They only lost by 3 to Louisville, and this Louisville team is really underrated. Their defense, I've watched some games back. Their defense is really good. They actually have me a little bit nervous for the potential ACC matchup against Florida State. But for this game against Notre Dame and Clemson, I'm not surprised that Clemson won. My dad actually took Clemson plus the points on his parlay. He hit. He had like an 8-leg parlay and everything hit except for the Oklahoma State game. We had Oklahoma in that one, so he hit like 7 out of 8. But yeah, Clemson just has a lot of good players. They had a couple starters out, Will Shipley, a couple of other players on the defense. But yeah, just a good game for Clemson at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Irish are on a bye week. Not to mention also another close game, Clemson loss against Miami in Miami a couple weeks back. This team could easily be 7-2 with or even like 8-1 with one of their losses being to Florida State that has been red hot and undefeated. But definitely also an advantage in the coaching matchup, Dabo versus Marcus Freeman. Freeman, 2 years into his Notre Dame reign here, and he needs a marquee big win, and he just hasn't been able to get it yet. So let's see how the Irish bounce back to close the season. They got 2 relatively easier games down the stretch. Probably not going to be making a New Year's Six bowl again, but they can win that bowl game and get some momentum. Maybe it'll be a different story next season, but I feel like it's always the same old story for the Irish. They have the games they should win, and sometimes they kill a team like they did against Pitt last week, and then sometimes they just throw away games that they should be winning, and can never really get that 12-0 to secure a spot. And they did it a couple seasons ago, but then they come up against the big boys in the playoff and then just get embarrassed. So, I mean, the college football playoff changes coming up next year definitely will be a big plus for a program like Notre Dame, independent, but as is, they just never seem like they have a shot at the title. So kudos to Clemson, big win at home, taking on Georgia Tech team that's been surprising some people last couple of weeks, but they're heavily favored in that one.
Yeah, I'm not touching that game. Clemson, like Notre Dame, sometimes they play really good, sometimes they play really bad. I mean, they're at home, but yeah, that one's staying away from my parlay. I think we can dive into this week's games, unless there's another game that we missed. I think we covered all of them, but
just a couple of games, just to touch on pretty quickly, I'd say. Ohio State and Rutgers. Ohio State continuing to win through the prowess of their defense. They actually get a late cover on the 18.5, winning by 19, 35-16. They were actually losing at halftime. Bit of a scary start there, but Ohio State still undefeated, ranked number 1 now. I mean, we all know how I feel about Kyle McCord, but I mean, time will only tell. We're gonna have Michigan at the end of the season, most likely. They can win that one. They're shoo-in, and still think Kyle McCord might be holding them back come playoff time. Anything on that one
Yeah,
for you, Alex?
yeah. I wasn't too surprised that Rutgers kept it close. I was actually about to put them in Ohio State in my parlay, but I had second thoughts, and once I saw that it was that close, I was like, oh, thankfully I didn't put that one in my parlay.
Yeah, week to week, Ohio State's either comfortably. I feel like they always keep it close for most of the game, and then uh, this last week they got a couple scores late. But interesting matchup this weekend for the Buckeyes taking on Michigan State. Another game just to touch on quickly. You had Tennessee basically with a bye week against UConn. They win 59-3, absolutely demolished the spread. They took care of the over/under by themselves at 55.5. Basically got no help from UConn there. But Volunteers looked really solid last week.
Yeah, and now they're going to play against Missouri this weekend. That's a very interesting matchup. I'm having trouble deciding on who to take in that game because both offenses are really good. Tennessee has a pretty good defense, but I think they're playing at Missouri, so that's going to be an interesting game.
Absolutely. Next one, just to touch on quick. You had Air Force after like a Cinderella run to start the season at 8-0. They lose the big one against to an unranked 2-6 Army team at the time. They lose 23-3. They were favored by 18.5. I feel like I jinxed them a bit. The first time I'm talking about Air Force here on the pod, gave a lot of credit to them last week, being undefeated, thinking they'd go undefeated to finish the season, and then not make the playoff just strictly based on resume. But huge loss to Army, and where does Air Force go from here, Alex?
Yeah, hopefully they bounce back. They didn't look too good. And these games always when they play Army or Navy, it's always sometimes it's close. But in this game they just lost. But interesting to see where they go next after here.
Yeah, it's always a hit or miss with the triple option offense, and definitely missed last week. I think you definitely want to talk a little bit about your team, Florida State. They traveled to Pitt. They were
They didn't
favored
look.
by. Yeah, they didn't look too great. They were favored by either 21.5 or somewhere around there, and didn't even come close to the 51 point over or under. One thing I definitely should have taken a better look at this. I'm always looking at the over and unders and then trying to somehow fit the weather into the equation. And it was cold. It was cold last week in Pennsylvania. Florida State's obviously a team that likes the warmer weather. Only put up 24. I mentioned Pitt had that team meeting, thinking they would probably pick up the slack on the offensive end of the football. Instead, only put up 7 points like they did the week prior. And got to be honest, I should have been looking more at the under on this one with a Pitt offense led by. I guess they benched their other quarterback. Name's blanking on me. He used to play for ND, but yeah, Sibo Flemister at running back, questionable. Rodney Hammond, I guess, took over this week. Just off on that game. Florida State winning handily, but not covering, and then coming nowhere near the 51 point total. But Florida State's still undefeated, Alex. What do you got to say about them?
Yeah, they don't look too good, but they also had Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson out, so that's why you can contribute that a lot of their offense, sparks out of Keon Coleman, one of the best wide receivers in the nation. But yeah, after seeing this game, seeing a couple of other games, they had a close game with Boston College. Yeah, that matchup or potential matchup and the ACC championship against Louisville is really starting to worry me, especially because of that Louisville defense. But yeah, interesting to see. But that's going to be a good game, Florida State versus Louisville. I think Keon Coleman's the X factor. I think even though Louisville still has a really good defense, I think Florida State will find a way to win.
Yeah, definitely. The two seemingly the two teams that'll make that ACC title game. Still got to give the edge to the Seminoles there as of right now, but we'll see what Louisville can do this weekend as the season comes to a close. Yeah, the only thing else I want to mention, Penn State stayed far away from them after my reasons last week. Thought Maryland might have been able to put up a bigger fight, but Penn State, right before a big matchup against Michigan this week, looked very solid in a 51-15 win on the road. Nothing too much else for me to look at there. Unless you have any opinions, Alex?
Yeah, I thought it would be a closer game too. I thought they might even get upset, or at least Maryland could cover the spread. I think I picked them to cover the spread, but yeah, now they head into this game against Michigan on a high note. Excited for this game. It's going to be at Penn State. This is an interesting game this weekend because we're finally going to get to see where Michigan is at. They've been destroying all their opponents, but they've been, low to medium tier level opponents. This week we get to see against somebody that has a really good defense. They don't have the best offense, but I'm sure they'll change their play calling in this one so they don't do the same thing against Ohio State. So interested to see that matchup this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely a big one to unpack later. Harbaugh might be suspended for this one, so that could be something to take into account. A couple of points moved from where the line opened up until now. We'll unpack that one in just a few. The last game we got to mention, the Ducks, Oregon at home against Cal, winning absolutely handily. The spread was 24 when we looked at it, closed at 25.5, and they put up 63 points on their own. Gave up 19, but when you're winning by that much, absolutely does not matter. Just giving up 6 points in the second half there. But this Oregon team is doing all they can to make the college football playoff committee overlook that one loss to Washington in a game where they had a lot of things in their favor for a win, but just lost it late. We've been mentioning it a couple weeks now, but very interested to see those two teams in a rematch.
Yeah, I think Brian Kelly and Dan Lanning, probably best friends. They're really aggressive, like to go for it, on fourth down when they don't need to. But yeah, hopefully we get to see that game. I'm excited. Oregon looks really good. I picked them on the money line to win in my parlay. That one was a guaranteed lock. I wasn't stressing about that one at all. They put up almost 600 yards on offense. They got the job done. That's the most important thing. And definitely excited to see them play this weekend. Definitely excited to see them win this weekend against USC. That's actually going to be my lock for this week. Oregon over USC.
Absolutely, that one's bouncing around like 14 points, I want to say. And the Ducks 7-1-1 against the spread this season. Let's see if they can keep up that hot streak. Alex, if you're ready, I'm ready to start breaking down Week 11, the lines and the over/unders, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's kick it off.
So what do you want to get into first here?
Let's see. We'll save the Penn State Michigan for last, since that's like the big matchup for this week. We have Louisville against Virginia. Louisville's playing at home. The spread on this one is a 20. Over/unders at 51. We saw Virginia beat. I think they beat Miami a couple weeks ago, or not Miami. They beat North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina a couple weeks ago. Took Miami into overtime. Louisville has a really good defense. I've said it a couple of times, but Their defense is really good, but I wouldn't be surprised if Virginia can at least cover the spread here.
Yeah, this is a Thursday night matchup that Louisville has been looking. If you take that one loss on the road to Pitt out of the equation, they've just been looking absolutely sharp. Beat Notre Dame by 13, shut out Duke 23-0, and then beat Vatek by 31, 34-3. 20 points definitely seems doable. This UVA team has put up points in weeks prior, especially, the highlight of that is 31 on North Carolina. But I think this Louisville defense, especially with a couple games down the stretch to try to solidify a spot in the ACC championship game, I think the Louisville defense is going to step up. I think they definitely covered the 20 points. That would be my take for this one.
Yeah, I'll stay away from this game. I won't put it on my parlay. But yeah, that defense is scary. We also have South Carolina versus Vanderbilt. South Carolina 2-6, I think, something like that. They haven't looked too good, but they have Spencer Rattler. They have a passing game. Vandy they don't have a passing game or a running game. Give me South Carolina at home. I won't touch the spread just because these two teams are pretty bad. But if I had to choose, give me Spencer Rattler. Give me the money line, South Carolina.
Yeah, this one, I'll be honest, not too much for me to go off of here. Vanderbilt, terrible in their last 5 matchups at least. South Carolina at home and coming off of a 10-point win. Win by 2 touchdowns is the line. Over under at 57.5. I'm just going to stay away completely, although I think that South Carolina definitely comes out with a dub. But nothing for me to take their spread or over under.
We have Kentucky versus Alabama, and they're going to play at Kentucky. So the spread's at 10.5 points. I think it opened up at around 14, so it's moved a little bit. Over unders at 49. So we've seen Alabama have these close games. They won by a pretty good margin against LSU this weekend, but they've been a little bit inconsistent. They barely beat Arkansas by 3 points. Had a close game against Texas A&M, only won by 6 points. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky stays in this game, or at least covers the spread, but give me Alabama on the money line. I won't touch the spread, but Alabama's also going to be one of my locks for this week.
Yeah, definitely think Alabama money line is a lock here. And I'll be bold enough to say I think they cover the 10.5 point spread. Kentucky is at home, but I think we were talking about Jalen Milroe just now and his great offensive showing against LSU. I think that Alabama and their defense is going to be the star of the show in this one. They're going to take care of business on the defensive side of the ball. They're not going to give Kentucky any wiggle room. If they can just play in the first half like they've been playing in the second half, I think this is an absolute lock for the spread of 10.5. And my gut's leaning on the under here, 48.5 or 48 on overtime. I think this is in the ballpark of like 31 points for Bama and around 10 for Kentucky. So give me the under and Alabama covering the spread here.
Yeah, I like the underplay here. Another thing that I'll note just real quick, Kentucky had a really close game against Tennessee when they played at home. So Kentucky's not as bad, as the record shows. They're actually pretty decent. They have really good running back, really good running game. Devin Leary started to play a lot better. They won this past weekend against Mississippi State. I also had that game on my parlay. Actually, we got really good odds for that. Um, about like +3 or -300. So, or maybe it was a little bit less, but yeah, excited for this game as well. We also
Yeah, that was
have
a good bounce back for Kentucky last week after dropping 3 straight prior. Probably
yeah.
contributed to those.
I should have taken the spread on that one.
Yeah, live and you learn, but definitely the safer position there, just back in the money line, and worked out for you for sure.
Yeah, and we have Florida State against Miami. Florida State's playing at home. You already know how I feel about Florida State. Give me Florida State to have Keon Coleman's going to be back. Johnny Wilson's going to be back as well. I think Florida State gets it done at home, and they put up a lot more points than they did last week.
Yeah, absolutely. They're returning back to Florida, at home, taking on their other Florida rival here in Miami, and I'm with you right there, Alex. I don't see any way that Florida State drops this one. The spread is at 14, which I could see Miami keeping this one in that general ballpark. They don't have to keep it that close to cover. So I'm going to stay away from the spread, although I do think Florida State, if I had to lean one way, would cover the 14. I feel a lot more comfortable and confident in Florida State returning to their offensive prowess here. The over-under is back at their sweet spot, 50.5. So my call here will be the over 50.5 here. I think they can definitely get some help from the Hurricanes in that aspect. And pretty comfortable in terms of hitting that over.
Yeah, I'm a little tempted to take Florida State and the over as a combined position. That's going to be interesting. I'll probably put it in a different parlay, but I'm definitely excited for that game. So we have another pretty good matchup here. Washington against Utah. Utah destroyed Arizona State this past weekend. So their offense, Bryson Barnes and the offense looked really good. Nice bounce back win for them at home. But now they're playing against Washington. A really good offense and with Michael Penix Jr. So the spread at this one is 9 points. Over unders at 54.5. I think Washington's playing at home. Their defense isn't the best, but it's definitely been better at home. So I'll take Washington on the money line here.
Yeah, not too happy with the Utah Utes over here on my end of the calls. I had them in my parlay. They were taking on Arizona State last week and was very, very confident in that under 41.5 hitting. And then they come out of nowhere after dropping 6 points the week prior. They dropped 55 on Arizona State's defense. So a little upset with the Utes. But hey, what can you do? They put up 55. They looked solid. But now they got a much tougher opponent. They're on the road. Washington's, without a doubt, they're going to go to 10-0. The only question here is, will they cover the spread of 9.5? I've seen a lot of sharp action taking Utah plus the points. Despite my comfortability with the Huskies all season, I backed them last week, despite the odds and Vegas suggesting USC had some value. I'm a little iffy on the 9.5 points, although I'd like to say Washington does cover that, and they look solid to end the season. I'm just gonna go with an over/under here. Probably keep this one out of any parlays based on how I feel about Utah right now, but I think the over 52.5 is a solid position to take. I wouldn't discredit Utah and their defense to keep this one close in terms of the 9.5 point spread, but Michael Penix Jr. definitely going to be scoring and helping the Huskies score a lot of touchdowns here. So I feel confident on the 52.5 over.
Yeah, I like the over here. Washington has a really good offense. They're definitely going to put up points. But the more important thing is Washington's defense is not as good. So I think they're definitely going to give up some points here to Utah. So yeah, I like this over here. We also have
Yep.
Missouri playing Tennessee. They're going to play at Missouri. Right now, Tennessee is favored by 1 point to win. Over unders at 59. And if there's one thing that I can guarantee is that there's going to be a lot of points. You have some of the best wide receivers in the country playing here. You have Luther Burden on Missouri. You have Squirrel White on Tennessee. Brady Cook. Um, you have Joe Milton. This is going to be a really good game. Almost too close to call for me. So Missouri just had a hard-fought game against Georgia last week. Tennessee's coming off a really easy win against UConn. Sometimes when you play like that, you play really hard and you come up short. Sometimes it shows in the next game, and you're not able to play as good. But they are playing at home. This is tough for me. If I had to lean one way, I would lean towards Missouri. But Tennessee has a good offense. They have a good defense. They haven't looked great on the road. They have one road win against Kentucky, and a close game. Missouri is definitely a lot better team than Kentucky. So if I had to lean one way, I would take the points on Missouri.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I was almost gonna just back Tennessee to oppose you, but I'm looking at their slate of games this season, and they haven't looked nearly as good on the road than they have at home. Notably, a couple weeks back on the road, traveling to Florida, had a big loss there. So my gut would suggest to stay away from calling the spread. Although I would lean towards the home team in Mizzou. But to your point, Alex, I think there's going to be a lot of offense. Like I've said in weeks prior, Brady will cook, and Mizzou's going to set the tone on the offensive side of the ball. And it's going to be up to Tennessee whether or not they respond and keep it close. And I think they will. It's going to be a fun one. 3:30 kickoff. 58.5 seems very doable if this one, ends up in the 40 to 30 range. Mizzou could definitely put that up, especially coming off of a tough loss against Georgia on the road. Still managed to score 21 points there. So I think they'll have an easier time finding the end zone this weekend. So I like the over.
Yeah, this is one of the more exciting games that's going to be on this weekend. Definitely hard to call, but I'm definitely looking forward to watch this game. We also have California against Washington State this weekend. They're playing at Cal. Washington State started off 4-0 on the season. Since then, they dropped a couple of straight games. They haven't looked nearly as good. They put out some points on both Washington and USC. Fernando Mendoza at quarterback there. He looked a lot better. But you have Cam Ward on the other side. So the over unders at 58.5. I think both offenses here have good offenses. I think the over here might be the better play.
Yeah, this one's concerning. Not a lot making sense here. On my end, maybe I'm just missing something, but Cal's got a 63.5% chance to win according to ESPN's analytics. Only favored by 1.5. And if you look at Washington State in terms of offense, they only scored 7 against Stanford last week and lost. Meanwhile, Cal taking on Oregon last week and got destroyed, but managed to put up 19 points here. It's going to be raining most likely. I don't know. Might oppose you here and say the under 58.5 and lead towards Cal on the money line. Definitely good value on Cal money line here based on their odds on the analytics. But yeah, just not too much for me to go off of in terms of these two teams. If I had to lean one way, Cal money line would be my call.
Yeah,
At home.
definitely hard to call. This is one of the games that you definitely want to keep away from your parlay. But yeah, interested to see this game too. We have Arkansas at home playing Auburn. So right now, the spread's at 3, favoring Arkansas. Over unders at 50.5. So Arkansas won last week against Florida in a must-win game for them. They kept Sam Pittman's job. Florida was favored, but I didn't want to touch that game last week because the players were really playing for Sam Pittman, for him to keep his job. I actually don't think he's that bad of a coach. But Auburn has a really good defense. They have a really good running game. Peyton Thorne is starting to look a lot better, throwing the ball, running the ball. If I had to lean one way, and I won't keep this one in my parlay just because it's too close to call, but I like Auburn here to cover the 3 points.
Yeah, Alex, I'm actually with you there in terms of in which way I lean. I was a little bit surprised to see Auburn coming into this one as the underdog. But like you said, spread's only 2.5 or 3, and they are on the road here. Arkansas coming off of a big overtime win on the road against Florida, and Auburn coming off of a relatively closer game considering they took on Vanderbilt, but they've won 2 games in a row now, one at home and one on the road. I would, honestly also be right there with you, leaning on Auburn, but maybe there is something I'm missing here with Arkansas. Seems like an interesting one to call here. I would have thought Auburn would have been favorited by a little bit, but they got a couple points as cushion. So it's an interesting one. I'll probably keep it away from any parlay or official positions, but if I had to lean one way, I'd go to the team with the winning record, and I'll take Auburn.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. We've seen Arkansas keep it close against Alabama and LSU, and we've seen Auburn keep it close against Georgia and Ole Miss. So these two teams are definitely a lot better than what their record shows. Definitely going to be an interesting game. I'm excited to see this one. We also have Ole Miss against Georgia. They're going to play at Georgia. So the spread right now is at 11 points in favor of Georgia. Over-unders at 58.5. This is going to be an interesting game. Jackson Dart, you got Judkins at running back. That guy's a beast. Georgia's defense is really good. They have a lot of playmakers. I'm not sure if Brock Bowers is going to return, but even without Brock Bowers, Georgia just has so many weapons. Lots of good wide receivers, lots of good running backs, solid defense. The defense looked really scary against Florida. I think I'll take Georgia on the money line. I don't know if they'll cover the spread of 11, but Ole Miss didn't look great at home last week. That game almost went into overtime, and Georgia's front seven is a lot better than Texas A&M's. So I'll take Georgia here on the money line.
Yeah, this is like you said, this will be interesting for sure. If there's one play that I'm very, or if not, slightly more confident on than the spread, it is the over here. 57.5 is on ESPN. I think 58 on overtime. But if you just look at these two teams' point totals, Obviously, Ole Miss 8-1 on the season. Georgia undefeated. If you look at their last 5, Ole Miss has put up 38, 33, 28, 27, and then 55 back in the end of September against LSU. We all know the cheese that LSU's defense represents, like Swiss. However, they've been consistently putting up around 30. And on the other side, you got Georgia, 30 points last week, 43, 37, 51, 27, getting back to the end of September against Auburn. Both these teams, week in and week out, have been scoring a lot. I think that this is a huge one for Ole Miss. They're going to want to be keeping it close throughout. And I definitely see both teams trading shots throughout the game. So I will make my official call here for this one on the over 57.5. When it comes to the spread, I definitely think it's a safer position to just take Georgia on the money line. I'm not too confident in them to cover 10.5 here. If I had to lean anyway, I'd honestly take Ole Miss plus the points. They're going to be fighting for their lives in this one. It's kind of a long shot for them to make the title game. They're going to need Alabama to lose a couple, but they're going to do everything in their power to make sure they have a case. And I honestly would not be completely shocked if Georgia is stunned this weekend. Although they're more than likely to win this one, I think there is some universe where Ole Miss sneaks out of Athens with a W. So if I had to lean one way, I'd say Ole Miss plus the points, but probably going to keep that one away from a parlay. I do like the over here.
Yeah, that over is a good play. I might have to tell you on that one because both of these offenses really explosive. Lots of good players on the field. Definitely, this is one of the more exciting games that's going to be on. Number 2 Georgia. I think they're ranked number 2 in the playoff rankings. I think Ole Miss is at number 9. But at top 10 matchup, college game day setting there. That's going to be a good one. We also have Oklahoma against West Virginia. Oklahoma's coming back home after being on the road for 2 games straight. So the spread at this one is at 12.5. Over under is at 58. I think this is a good bounce back spot for Oklahoma. West Virginia likes to run the ball a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they can keep it a little bit close. But Brent Venables has to have his team ready here. This is a must win for Oklahoma here, just to get them in a nice bowl game.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think, especially after a tough loss to their state rival Oklahoma State, they're coming back home. West Virginia's 6-3 on the season, but I don't feel like their squad matches up anywhere close to this Oklahoma team. And the line right now is at 13, opened at 11. A couple points have been moved up. I still think 13 is very doable. Oklahoma, if they return to form, which I feel like they will, that 13-point spread is very doable. Tough loss against Oklahoma State, and then the week prior, losing one to Kansas to the Jayhawks, Rock Chalk. But throughout the season, especially throughout the first 7 weeks, they've looked pretty solid. They had a big win against Texas. So I think 13 points is definitely doable. 58.5, I'm a little less confident in terms of calling something on the over-under there. So I'll probably stay away from that. But give me Oklahoma covering the points there.
I'm definitely excited to see this game. Hopefully Oklahoma wins because they've lost 2 games straight. So I'm going to go. Usually what I like to do is I like to take teams after a loss, which I did this past weekend. That didn't work out. I like to take them, I'll take them here. coming off 2 straight losses, but they're coming back at home. Last week I took Kentucky coming off 3 straight losses, and they came back at home. Or no, actually they went on the road against Mississippi State. But I'll take Oklahoma here on the money line, and I'm going to add this one to my parlay. We also have in the Big 12 TCU versus Texas. TCU is going to be at home. Malik Murphy hasn't looked great. I think he has 3 interceptions so far and 3 starts. So 3 interceptions and 1 fumble. And his first 2 starts without Quinn Ewers. But Texas is talented enough to win this game against TCU without Quinn Ewers. Malik Murphy has a good arm. He just has to stay away from those mistakes. That just comes with experience. But yeah, I don't think though, even with Malik Murphy, and I don't see how TCU can win this game. The spread's only at 9.5. I think Texas' defense can. They have a good enough defense to be able to cover that. They definitely have enough talent to do it. Yeah, I like the spread here on Texas.
Yeah, I think Texas definitely wins this one for sure. They are on the road, but 10 points is a little. I think that's a lot of points for TCU in terms of a cushion here. They did get killed by Kansas State 2 weeks ago, 41-3, and Texas for the majority of that game last weekend was outright beating K-State. However, something about this one just feels a little iffy. For whatever reason, maybe it's to your point, Alex. You got TCU after 2 weeks on the road, 2 losses, coming back home. Maybe that got into my head a little bit, but I'm just gonna stay away from this one completely. 53.5 is the over under. If Ewers is playing, that definitely helps for the cause on the over, but for some reason I could also see this one going a little bit under, especially if Ewers isn't playing. So as of right now, I'm just going to stay away completely for this one. But 2 big Texas teams clashing late night on Saturday. Definitely going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we'll see if Texas can take control of the Big 12 now that Oklahoma's out. Definitely an interesting game. We also have Texas A&M at home against Mississippi State. I think Will Rogers still isn't back, so I'll take give me Texas A&M on the money line.
Yeah, 18.5 points is the spread here. That's a lot for me to want to make a call, although I do think A&M is by far the better team. They're coming off of a tough one against Ole Miss on the road, so I definitely think they bounce back and grab the dub. I could see this one being scarily low scoring, though, so I'm a little bit hesitant to call Texas A&M covering that spread. If I had to lean one way for the over-under, I'd lean on the under in a chippy matchup here. But definitely going to keep this one away from parlays as well. You never know with these SEC teams who's going to be playing harder week in and week out. Sometimes it's the defense stepping up. Sometimes you get miraculous performances on the offensive side of the ball. But Texas A&M at home, I like the position for them on the money line here.
Yeah, I could definitely see, maybe Mississippi State does something crazy. They can cover the spread or straight up win. We've seen crazier things happen this year. We also have LSU against Florida State, or not Florida State, against Florida. They're playing at Death Valley. Excited to see this one. I think LSU is going to win this one pretty easily. So the spread's at 13.5. Over unders at 63.5. I'm not sure if Jaden Daniels is going to be back. I think he's still on concussion protocol. But if Jaden Daniels plays, they should be able to cover that spread pretty easily.
Yeah, without a doubt, Alex. I think this one is a lock of a W for the Tigers. We'll dive into the parlays later, but I already took them on the money line in a combined parlay. I took some inspiration from you after your big weekend. I also really like the over in this one. Line's at 63.5 on overtime right now. It's still at 62.5, so a bit of value there. If you snag it now, it's definitely probably going to move up before Saturday as teams keep piling on the LSU offense. And I think, and even if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, their backup quarterback has been pretty solid. Definitely no scrub in that department. Garrett Nussmeier. He filled in a little bit at the end of last week's matchup between Alabama, and threw 10 passes, completed 5 of them, but that Alabama defense, like we mentioned in the second half, is no joke. I think if he were to slot in there for the Tigers this weekend, he wouldn't have any trouble at all keeping this well-oiled machine going. And you still have a lot of weapons on the ground and in the air. Neighbors specifically looked very solid against Alabama, especially in that first half. He had 171 yards and a touchdown. So I think LSU money line is a lock. Even the points, winning by 2 touchdowns at home, definitely doable. They're gonna look to make a statement here. As much as I dislike Brian Kelly, he will win the games that he should win more often than not. And I think you just got to rely on the talent that LSU has. So, sorry about that. But I definitely like them. Money line, spread, and over for this matchup.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my locks for the week as well. And like you said, even if Garrett Nussmeier plays, they can still win this thing easily. So we have North Carolina at home against Duke. Sadly, Riley Leonard is not going to play. We don't know if he's going to come back on the season, but North Carolina is playing at home. If they had Riley Leonard, I would probably take the points with Duke, but they don't, and North Carolina is playing here at home. I think this is a winnable game for North Carolina, but you never know. They've had a couple of bad losses against unranked teams, so we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, this one shocked me as well. You know, we talked about earlier, it was like Arkansas and Auburn. I was surprised to see Auburn as the dog in that one, and definitely North Carolina should be favored in this one. But I feel like 14 points is a little disrespectful to the Blue Devils. I know they've had not the greatest past couple of weeks, especially highlighted by Riley Leonard and his unfortunate injuries, but their defense is no slouch. This is a UNC team that has looked pretty bad against a couple of teams that they were heavily favored against. I had to lean one way. My gut here is leaning on taking Duke plus the points. It's a nice cushion of 14. That would be my position for this game.
Yeah, that's not a bad position. I think they could straight up win this game outright if they had Riley Leonard in. The backup doesn't look as good, but yeah, I think they could cover the 14. We also have
just looking to keep it close. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, just got to keep it close.
yeah. Hopefully they can do enough just to win. It's kind of disappointing because they had a really good team. Got off to a good start with that upset win over Clemson, but Riley Leonard goes down and everything goes downhill from there. Very unfortunate for Duke. They could have had a historic season. Definitely a lot of potential for them. We also have Oregon at home against USC. This is going to be a lock. There's no way that Oregon is going to lose to USC. They're just too good on both sides of the ball, on offense and on defense. You have Bo Nix playing really good, putting up lots of points. You have Bucky on the ground, putting up lots of rushing yards. USC has no defense, and they're on the road. So the spread's only at 15. I think Oregon could easily cover that. Unless Bo Nix got hurt or something, or I would say even say half the offense got hurt. This should be. There's a lot of value here picking Oregon plus the points. I don't think USC's defense is going to be able to stop them.
Yeah, this one for absolutely, I'm right there with you on Oregon. The money line for Oregon is a lock. But this game in terms of the spread has been interesting. Opened up at 15.5 for Oregon. Earlier this morning I was checking it and went down to about 14, plus 14 for USC. And right now while we're recording, it's jumped back up a bit for Oregon, back to minus 15. So that throws me in for a bit of a loop there. You see some action on both sides. However, like I mentioned earlier in the pod, this Duck squad is 7-1-1 against the spread all season. So all indications point to them covering the spread once again, no matter where that ends up. If it goes up to maybe even 16 as we inch closer to Saturday, I won't be officially calling or taking Oregon to cover. I think you can't. I mean, as bad as USC's defense has looked, you cannot discredit them from putting up points, and this one could definitely be within 2 touchdowns. So I'll stay away from the spread here. But, I mean, do we even have to discuss the reasons for the take on the over here? USC, terrible defense, but on the offensive side of the ball, can easily get the ball moving quickly and score a lot. And then Oregon, they've just looked fantastic all season in terms of scoring points. 63 last week. Still put up 35 against a solid Utah defense. I think if Caleb Williams is playing like the Heisman he was last season, and Bo Nix is playing for the Heisman for this season, we're definitely going to see a big shootout. I like the over even at 73 points. So that might be another one for me to add to an over parlay here as we get into those in a bit.
Yeah, that over is a little tempting to me. I might put that one on my second parlay. Is there any games that we missed?
Well, we actually, while I was looking at recapping the pod and filling out the spreadsheet for us, we forgot to mention the Buckeyes last weekend, and we still haven't touched on them this weekend in terms of spread over unders. So let's give the Buckeyes some credit here. College football playoff number 1 at the moment. They are hosting the Michigan State Spartans. The spread is at 31.5, which I will not be taking, despite my indications, thinking that Ohio State, no matter what, could always cover that. Especially Michigan State just have not looked great this year. They got shut out by Michigan a couple weeks back. They're coming off of a narrow victory at home against Nebraska, but on the road they have looked terrible. Losing to Minnesota on the road, Rutgers, Iowa. So they're going to the Horseshoe. This is going to be a pretty brutal environment for them. Ohio State is going to do everything they can to reach the Big Ten championship game undefeated. And last time I took a Big Ten team to cover a 31.5 point spread, I got embarrassed, and it was the one leg on my parlay that missed. So I'll be wisely staying away from that. In terms of the over-under, this is an interesting one. The line moved back up for Ohio State. Past couple of weeks, it's been around the 43 to 44 range. This game, it's coming in at 47.5. And While my gut would lean on the under, considering Ohio State's defense has been the star of the show for most of the season, there's something in me that feels like they could reach the over. They had a late cover on the over last week, despite the 2 weeks prior the unders hitting. So, and this could be a tough one. Michigan State, not known for putting up a ton of points, especially on the road. But I feel like Ohio State could make a big case down the stretch as to why they should be at that number one spot and have an insane performance themselves and even cover that in their own right. My brain's saying under, my gut's saying over for some reason. So I'm going to trust my gut like I usually do. And I'm going to lean on the over for this one as my take, but I'll probably keep it out of a parlay. Anything for you on this game, Alex?
Yeah, I don't trust Kyle McCord to cover that 31.5 points. Michigan State's pretty bad, but and just too inconsistent for me. I'm gonna stay away from this game.
Yeah, definitely a wise call. Marvin Harrison can do only so much. If he could, telepathically ask the ball to go to a specific spot, I'm sure he'd be able to get there. But like I've been saying the past couple weeks, and we've both been saying it, can't trust Kyle McCord. But you never know. You never know if this is the week he finally looks like a competent quarterback and the man commanding an offense of a number one team. But yeah, just a little bit iffy. I'd say if Michigan State has proven a little bit on the road in terms of offense, the over would be a lot more comfortable for me to call. But something's telling me that Michigan State does get a score or two here, despite putting up nothing against Michigan a couple weeks ago. But yeah, this one's a little bit on the fence. So, like you said, I'll probably just stay away from the parlays for this one. If there's anything else. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Oh no, you can go.
I was just going to say if there's anything else you wanted to look at or talk about, and it seemed like you were doing it. My bad.
Yeah, just the last one. So one of the other big matchups for this week. So College Game Day is going to Georgia for the Georgia Ole Miss game. But another big matchup. I think Penn State's number 10. I'm not sure. Last time I checked, or last week, I think they were either 10 or 11. But we have number 3 Michigan versus number 10 or 11 Penn State. Penn State's playing at home. James Franklin, terrible against both Michigan and Ohio State. Thankfully, he's playing at home this weekend. But Penn State has a really good defense. But in big games, they lack a lot of creativity, especially on play calling. They don't have elite wide receivers, to put up points on this Michigan team. I don't know. I kind of want to take Michigan on the money line, and I probably will. But we've also seen this Michigan team, especially last year. I know it's a different team, but we saw what TCU did to Michigan, and something that shouldn't have happened. And Penn State's playing at home here, but I'll lean on Michigan money line.
Yeah, this game is interesting, no doubt. Just to paint the picture a bit, it opened up, I believe the -7 or -6.5 for Michigan. And at the time of recording right now, the line for Michigan is -4.5. A lot of action on Penn State to cover that spread early in the week. It's moved the line down. You also got an interesting scenario for Coach Harbaugh. He might get suspended for this game, and that's definitely something to take into consideration that might cost Michigan a point or two here or there. So while my gut initially says that there's some value in taking Penn State plus the points. Maybe they lose on like a last-second field goal, still get the cover. You got to come back to Coach James Franklin. In big games, he's 3-16 against top 10 teams. Obviously, Michigan falling into that category. We're currently at number 3, undefeated on the season. They're going to Beaver Stadium, however, which is a pretty tough environment to play in. This one, I keep teetering back and forth. I'm with you there, where I feel like Michigan will escape with the win somehow. For the past couple of weeks now, I've consistently felt like it's going to be a classic Ohio State, Michigan Big Ten championship game where both teams come in undefeated, and I still feel like that's the case. However, I'm not super confident in this Michigan team covering the spread, even though that it's moved down a couple points as of late. If I had to give a call, I'd say Penn State plus the points is probably the safer bet there, but absolutely would not be surprised if Michigan just keeps on trucking along and wins by a touchdown. So I'll probably keep this one completely out of any parlay. The over-under 44.5 is an interesting one as well, because we just saw Penn State put up 51 points on the road. Saw Michigan put up 41 last week, 49 the week prior, 52 the 2 weeks prior to that. I mean, they've covered that exact spread themselves 4 out of the last 5 weeks. So you'd almost feel like the over here is a lock. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I think, especially against that Ohio State game, Penn State was really conservative with their play calling. They didn't really open it up. Now James Franklin has a second chance, to not do what he did the last game, to really open up the playbook, throw in some deep passes, just get more creative on the play calling. But that Penn State defense is the real deal. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they could cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I see on overtime the line for the over-unders at 45. I think that one could be scarily close. We might see like a 24-21 game, and that just be a push. It's a little too close to call completely. Definitely keeping this one out of any parlays. If I had to lean one way, we're taking Penn State plus the points. But yeah, this one's going to be exciting. Early kickoff. Definitely going to be watching this one end to end. If it's anything like the Ohio State matchup, it's going to be a low-scoring, close affair. So we'll see what happens. Definitely going to be excited to break this one down with you next weekend on Wednesday, Alex.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So I think we can dive into our parlay picking. So I'll go for this week. I'll go give me Alabama on the money line. Give me Florida State money line. I'll take, let's see, Texas on the money line to get it done over TCU, even with Quinn Ewers out. LSU is definitely a lock. And I'll go Oregon on the money line. So let's see, I'll put in, we're going in $20 to win 24, $24 profit. The payout's at 44. So just another 5-leg parlay. Pretty much all locks. We're going to keep it simple this week.
Okay, and to sort of piggyback off you here, I'm going to go in with a 5-leg parlay of my own. I already placed this one a little bit before we started recording. If my computer will comply and load. Yeah, we got Oregon money line taking on Arizona State. LSU bouncing back money line. Florida State as well money line. 4 home teams there, and then 1 team on the road. If you guessed the Crimson Tide, you're correct. Give me Alabama money line against Kentucky. Got 5 teams for plus 106, $10 going on that. And then, I like my over and unders. Let's return to form here. We'll do a triple play on the overs here. And if I can locate the games on overtime, I can get an estimate of the odds. I feel like it'll be about 5-1 regardless. But give me Oregon USC over 73 points. Then give me LSU and Florida over 62.5. And then last but not least, going to that Georgia Ole Miss game over 58. 3 teams. We'll put $5 on this one at 5-1 odds almost exactly. So 5 to return about 24 and change. And those will be my 2 plays this week. Sad to say I'm taking a break from the 4 for 4, but we'll see if a 3-legger can get it done, and I feel very confident in that 5-leg money liner to at least make your money back and exactly on the lines there. So, Alex, I think you're gonna keep it hot here. I'm excited to see how yours plays out, and I got my fingers crossed for myself.
Yeah, I just I forgot to add one leg actually. Give me. Oh, so Oklahoma's lost 2 straight, and they're coming back here at home. So I'll add that position. So it'll be $20 for a profit of 33 and a total payout of 53. So just forgot to add that one in, but that's my parlay for this weekend.
And then I think just one game that we didn't touch on, but I want to get in really quickly here. We got Syracuse taking on Pitt at Yankee Stadium. And for the most part, New York's team in terms of football is the Orange. The neutral site game, but definitely feels like it's going to be a home game here for Syracuse. They are the underdog in this one. They're given 3 points. If you want to be a little bit safer and take Syracuse plus 3, it's definitely a safer position for sure. But I like Syracuse as an outright slight underdog in this one. I might be putting a little bit just on Syracuse to win that one. Pitt, we know how I feel about Pitt. I don't know how they beat Louisville a couple weeks back, but Notre Dame destroyed them 2 weeks ago. And I think Syracuse, I think Vegas is wrong on this one. I think Syracuse should be favored here, especially considering they more than likely will have a favorable atmosphere playing in the cold in Yankee Stadium. Got to win one for New York.
Yeah, I don't know. Opinions on this game. I haven't, other than that Louisville game that Pittsburgh won, and so the weather had a lot of a factor in there. It was raining, really muddy, so I'll stay away from calling this game. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh should definitely, or Syracuse should definitely be favored.
Yeah, well, I think that's gonna wrap things up for us in terms of the parlay and bet positions in this section at the end here. As always, to any listeners, viewers out there, if you got any hot takes or any locks that you want to drop in the comments, we are completely looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. If anybody wants to drop a comment, we will definitely highlight that next week on the pod. Always looking to try to increase this community here over at Overtime. On a side note, Alex, this past weekend in terms of NBA, I almost took the top spot home from that parlay leaderboard that we've been mentioning. Was one leg off of a 8-leg spread bet on NBA lines. Kevin Durant just needed a couple more rebounds against the Pistons, and I would have been smooth sailing at the number 1 spot. But just another fun aspect of overtime markets, that parlay leaderboard, some incentives if you can reach one of the top 10 spots. But nonetheless, going to be looking forward to some fantastic matchups, especially Penn State, Michigan, and USC, Oregon this weekend. Can't forget Ole Miss and Georgia. Alex, I'll let you take it out from here.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the NBA. I also had or for this weekend I have so Jerry and Pereira are gonna fight this weekend. I'm definitely looking forward to that fight. I think Pereira has a good chance to win, so I'm probably gonna combine it with some of my football parlays and see if I can get on that leaderboard. But yeah, like Steven said, drop your picks in the comments. Doesn't have to just be football. We have other sports. We have soccer, football, basketball, hockey, UFC, boxing. If you have any locks, just drop them in the comments. We might tail you guys. And yeah, thank you for joining.
So thanks to our two hosts. Just a quick reminder that none of this was financial advice or sports advice. The choice is yours. Place your position on overtime markets.xyz. See you next week.